All right, to the Gregolog. It's a crown of clarity on a molar of malice. So last weekend, Jon Stewart was interviewed by Chris Wallace on FNC. It was a feisty tussle, all about point of view. Stewart's claim, Fox News' perspective is ideologically based, following a predetermined right-wing map. As for lefty bias at other networks, that's a product of sensationalism or drugs. As for Jon's bias, he says it's purely comedic. So when he links Palin to herpes, that's coming from a funny place, not a political one. And when he dons a black accent to mock Herman Cain, that's because comics do funny voices, even funny black voices. After all, he does Obama all the time, right? Anyway, here's Wallace going after Stewart over Cain.
Here's your take on GOP presidential candidate Herman Cain.
So that's why I'm going to only allow small bills. 3 pages. You would have time to read that one over the dinner table.
If I am president, treaties will have to fit on the back of a cereal box. From now on, the State of the Union address will be delivered in the form of a fortune cookie. I am Herman Cain, and I do not like to read.
You planning a remake of Amos and Andy?
Why don't you do you want to show me doing all the voices for all the other people that we do? Do you want to see my New York voice? My Chinese guy voice? Are you suggesting that you and I are the same? Are you suggesting that, what am I at my highest aspiration and what are you at your highest aspiration?
I think,
tell me.
Honestly, I think you want to be a political player.
You are wrong.
Now, Stewart doesn't need another person to say he's funny, but someone needs to tell him he's lying. Not to Wallace, but to himself. He is ideologically driven and pretty much admits that when he talks of the Tea Party smears.
I think that there is probably a liberal bias that exists within the media that is because of the medium in which it exists. I think that the majority of people working in it probably hold liberal viewpoints, but I don't think that they are as relentlessly activist as the conservative movement that has risen up over the last 40 years. And that movement has decided that they have been victims of a witch hunt. And to some extent, they're right. People on the right are called racist, and they're called things with an ease that I am uncomfortable with, and homophobic and all those other things. And I think that that is absolutely something that they have a real right to be angry about and to feel that they've been vilified for those things. And I've been guilty of doing some of those things myself.
Well done. But what about Stewart telling Wallace that his job is harder?
When did I say to you, I'm only a comedian? I said I'm a comedian first. That's not only. Being a comedian is harder than what you do. What I do is much harder. I put material through a process, a comedic process.
The comedic process. Sorry, I don't think Stewart knows hard. The first and only step in The Daily Show is making jokes about people the writers disagree with. Stewart knows the writers belong to a labor pool that is decidedly liberal, and the hardest thing about that pool isn't swimming in it, but getting out of it. Once you're out, goodbye applause. Finally, those who deny their own ideology most are probably lying. And so Stewart may be guilty of a sin the left often accuses the right of: false consciousness. He's unaware of his liberalism because he's soaking in it, which could explain the sports coat and T-shirt combination. And if you disagree with me, you're probably a racist. I wasn't insulting you on your jacket.
I hurt.
I know. I saw you cringe.
Absolutely hurt.
I feel really bad about
I
that.
think it looks gorgeous. Can I just say I have huge crushes on men? I know it's not going to get me far with you, with that particular combination.
That means a lot. I've got a huge thing for Brit accents.
But you know, there's Phil here. He's appropriately dressed.
But she's missing something.
It's fairly critical.
Yeah, it really is to the deal. It's not going to work out. Trust me on this. Dan, you're a comedian and you're a fine one. Is it possible for somebody to say they are not influenced by ideology?
I don't really know. I mean, he's in a high pressure cooker situation. You know, I love Jon Stewart. He's a great comedian, and I just think you don't know where it begins and where it ends.
Yeah.
You're going to have to take some personal belief in what you're writing about. You have to.
Yeah. I agree. Imogen, when he whines about FNC, isn't it like he's saying, why can't they be like everybody else? Isn't that kind of what he's saying?
No, I don't think he's whining FNC at all. No, I don't. First of all,
Really?
I think the reason why he's using FNC as an example up there is that FNC is a better entity. It's a more cohesive entity. It's better at what it does. The Liberals, on the other hand, are sort of fairly lackadaisical. They're all over the place. So yes, everybody's got ideology, but the Conservatives are better organised, I would say, than the Liberals are.
I say they've improved dramatically in it over the past, I'd say, 10 years. Because remember, it really didn't exist until the modern day Fox introduced the fair and balanced thing. Chris, where do you see this? What do you?
That was by the way, that was the smarmiest I have ever seen Jon Stewart. I mean, I think he can be a smarmy guy. That interview with Chris Wallace was just about the height of smarminess. I'm just sitting here watching it again. I'd love, by the way, for him to do that Herman Cain impression in Herman Cain's face. Like, I would love to see that. And by the way, maybe the RLC should have hired Jon Stewart to come down and do his Obama impression, since apparently for liberals, making racially tinged jokes like that is absolutely acceptable. Once again, for conservatives, it's a double standard.
'Cause he's a
We're
comedian.
racist. It's front page of the Washington Post. Yeah.
I do think comedians, though, should be able to do ethnic voices.
I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you can't, I don't
It's the
understand.
double standard that's the problem.
Yeah,
though.
it's true, but it's like, when your drunk uncle does it at the table,
Yeah.
it's weird.
Yeah.
It really is.
Every time Rush has an impersonator on
Yeah.
that does any like African American voice whatsoever, I mean, the left Media Matters immediately sends out a release saying
Yeah.
racist, Rush Limbaugh, race baiting again. Jon Stewart does it, and they all rewind it and say, "Isn't he so funny?"
Well, it's because of Herman Cain. He's not Obama. Bill, last word on this. What was with the outfit?
You were wearing the same thing before the show. You had a gray shirt and jacket on, just like him.
Oh, that's 'cause I
should
was
have taken
lazy.
I should have taken a picture.
I was lazy.
He's lazy too. Remember last time he came on O'Reilly, he didn't even wear makeup.
Yeah,
I couldn't
that's true.
believe that.
That's true.
I always have my makeup.
And he also came in sweatpants, which was
Yes,
But that's
exactly.
because he was going to Scores after.
Well, and also I sat on his lap beforehand. Less friction.
Yeah.
Less friction. Smarmy's one word. I'd say brave. I mean, he came into the lines and he defended himself. I thought he did it well.
I agree.
And I agree with what he said. I think that what
Quickly.
he does is more difficult than what Chris Wallace does, because Chris Wallace, he could do Chris Wallace's job, maybe not as well, but he could do Chris Wallace's job. Chris Wallace can't do his.
All right. So what's it like?
Greg along Jon Stewart. Greg, you poo-pooed Stewart saying that his job, being a comedian, putting news through a comedic process, is harder than Chris Wallace's. Clearly, you have no idea what it's like to do the kind of job Jon Stewart or I do. I will tell you, it's a lot harder than what you and Chris Wallace do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
I don't know.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
The rest of this segment was about Chris's jacket, I believe.
Yes, it was. You have to admit.
Oh, it's a nice jacket.
Yeah,
it's a fine jacket. No. Chris, you said you would like to see Stewart do his Herman Cain impression in front of Herman Cain. Don't you think Cain would get a kick out of it?
Actually, no, I don't.
Really?
No, I don't think you'd enjoy it.
Why not?
That's just my guess. Well, because I think he's being insulting. He's being intentionally insulting. I don't think that he would care that it was, that he's trying to do a black voice.
Right.
I think it would be, the fact that he was insulting him.
Okay.
Fair point.
All right. I do agree with you, Chris, that if a conservative comedian had done a voice like that, he would have gotten crap for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.